Whole country and its culture is a rich source of language, art, fashion, music, ideas, and food. All countries are constantly changing and adapting to influences. Today, the pace at which countries are changing is increasing due to a number of factors. One of these factors is globalization. As trade and technology view increasingly complicated globalization wear on individual culture. There are many debates and cultural feelings between many people around the world about this phenomenon. This video will interview a person who had the evidence of this phenomenon 40 years ago, and she will explain about what is globalization and how it affects on her life. In his story, there are many ideas to debate about the definition of globalization when it has been happening in a few last decades. According to Martin Albro, 1990, globalization can be all the process by which people of the world are incorporated into a single world society, global society. Continued in 1999, David Hare explained globalization as a process which embodies a transformation of the spatial organization of social relation and transaction. However, nowadays, the new idea of globalization follow the 21st century. People like to think that globalization refers to the integration of markets in the global economy, leading to increased interconnectedness of national economy. Talk about this phenomenon, there are three styles argue about globalization. One of them is supporter, who think about the benefit or advantage of globalization. Second one is some people who still consider about benefit or disadvantages of globalization. They are skeptics. And last one, critics, who think all about the drawback of globalization. In 21st century, there are many ways to approach globalization definition. One way to define about globalization is it refers to a system of very complex connections around the world, or the worldwide movement toward economic, political, and cultural. It happens strongly in economic, financial, trade, and communication integration. In business side, it opens the new limit of local, nationalistic perspective to a broader outlook of an interconnected and interdependent world with free transfer of capital, goods, and service across national frontiers. One of these evidence is vast multinational corporations such as Shell, Samsung, and Mitsubishi. So, what has globalization increased? The pace of globalization had increased for a number of reasons. Development in ICT, transport and communication had accelerated the pace of globalization over the past 30 years. The Internet had enabled fast and 24/7 global communication, as the use of containerization had enabled vast quantity of goods and commodities to be shipped across the world at extremely low cost. Secondly, is social media. More recently, the rise of social media means that national boundaries have, in many ways, become irrelevant as producers use a new form of communication and marketing, including micro-marketing to target international consumers. The widespread use of smartphones and also enabled global shoppers to have easy access to virtual global market. Next one, e-payment system. The rise of electronic payment system including e-wallet, prepay and mobile pay, e-invoice and mobile pay apps also facilitates increased global trade. The fourth, it is capital more freely around the world. The increasing aim is moreover than capital mobility has also acted to stimulate to globalization. When capital can move freely from country to country in the world, it is relatively straightforward for him to locate and invest abroad and repatriate profits. The next one is the development of complex financial products, such as derivatives, has enabled global credit market to grow rapidly. Moreover, the increased trade which has become increasingly free following the collapse of communism, which had opened many former communist countries to inward investment and global trade. Over the last 30 years, trade openness, which is identified as the ratio of export and import to national income, had risen from 25% to around 40% for industrialized economies, and from 50% to 60% for emerging economies. The last reason is the emergence of footloose multinational and transnational companies. There are always two sides of a phenomenon, which come from the argument. In this case, it mainly comes from anti-globalization and supporters. There are also several potential disadvantages of globalization, including the following. Firstly, barriers of entry. The overstandardization of product through global rendering is a common criticism of globalization. For example, the majority of the world computers use Microsoft Windows operating system. Clearly, the standardizing of computer operating system and platform brings considerable benefit, but critics argue that this leads to a lack of product diversity as well as branding barrier to entry to small, local, and produce. On the other hand, globalization also brings a number of potential benefits to international producers and national economy, including 7 profit. Hello, Teresa.
Hi, Catherine.
Yes. Today I'm have an interview with you about globalization and its effect on your life. And firstly, can you introduce for me something about yourself?
Yes, my name is Teresa Brown. I'm 49 years old. I've been an ESL teacher for 24 years. I have 2 degrees. I have 1 degree in arts, majoring in English, 1 degree in psychology, and a master's in community development.
Yes, so great. And what kind of work have you done in your life?
In my life, when I was young, in my teen years and in my 20s,
Yeah.
I did a lot of different jobs to support myself through university. So a lot of waitressing, cleaning work, and then after I graduated, I worked for the public service for a couple of years. And then when I was traveling in my 20s and 30s, I worked in England and a little bit in Mexico. And then in my 30s, I decided to do ESL training. I did a graduate certificate in that, and then I've worked in Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, and now Newcastle, ESL teaching.
What do you want from organization for your work, and have the expectation changes over time from 1960 until now?
Yes, definitely. Expectations of work. We expect a lot more flexibility in work. A lot of women, especially for women, because they expect to be able to work and have children. So they do expect some flexibility from their workforce, and this is why I've worked at the University of Newcastle for the last nearly 20 years, because the university offers great flexibility and great support in terms of maternity leave, like leave when you have a baby, in terms of holidays, in terms of sick leave. The university has a very good support network and flexibility for its employees. So a lot of people stay in the university sector for a long time.
What kind of say did you have in decision at work? Has it changed over time, and how the globalization affect to your work?
Globalization, I think, in terms of, it's certainly changed in terms of ESL teaching. It's in terms of the type of students we now have at the Language Centre. I think globalization's changed that. A lot of, when we first started teaching, or when I first started teaching, students had been taught in a very structured way, especially from Asia. It was very, a lot of rote learning, it was very different to how we were taught in Australia. But now, probably the last 10 years, the students that are coming from Asia, like Vietnam, China, I think a lot of their education system is changing, especially at the university level, to be quite similar to Australian system. Yeah. So the students that we're getting have changed because globalization has affected the education systems in those countries.
How technology changed the nature of your work over time, and how?
Very much so. Technology, especially in the last probably 5 years, a lot more work is expected to be done online. There's the whole flipped classroom where students are expected to do a lot of work at home before they come into the classroom. So teachers have to be aware of how to use technology, and particularly because it's changing so quickly, you have to keep learning new ways of using the technology well in the education sector.
Yeah, and how your work become more or less secure over time?
Well, it's interesting. My work is very secure because I'm a permanent staff member, so it's very secure. But there's in terms of the general university, it is a lot more insecure. There's a lot more casualisation of staff, and it's quite difficult to get permanent positions now.
Okay. How have you traveled or moved for work or worked with people in other countries, and how do you feel about it?
Can you say it again?
Have you traveled or worked for work, and how do you feel it should be a transit or opportunity for you when you face with it?
Yes. In terms of travelling for work, most of it at the university has been in Australia. The only time I went overseas was to Cambodia for a conference, and that was great because I really liked it because the teachers from Australia were trying to help the teachers in quite remote communities in Cambodia, so helping teachers that don't have a lot of resources. So I really enjoyed that because it was actually hands-on helping teachers in remote communities.
Can you tell me about any major shock or changes that happened in your working that you can